Welcome to More Than Miles, the podcast created to look deep into what it means to be a runner and endurance athlete. Our episodes are filled with real stories from real runners, elite to the everyday athlete. We bring together healthcare providers, athletes, and dive deep into topics that matter most to runners. I'm Dr. Kate Mihevik-Edwards, physical therapist, author, athlete, and complete coffee addict.
And I'm Dr. Kacy Sinders, physical therapist, athlete, and pun expert extraordinaire. We're so passionate about changing running culture to improve the health, wellness, and fulfillment of our endurance athlete community. And we hope that these conversations inspire you to focus on putting your health first so that performance and PRs can follow. Now let's get to the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to More Than Miles. Today, we have Tommy Nohilly on the show. And Tommy Nohilly is the new Atlanta Track Club elite coach, and we are really excited to have him here in Atlanta. Tommy has 15 years of high-level coaching experience, including at the New Jersey, New York Track Club for a total of 11 years before he co-founded Empire Elite Track Club, also in New York, in 2021. In addition to his experience as a coach, he was the 1989 NCAA champion in the steeplechase at University of Florida, a three-time U.S. runner-up in the steeplechase, and represented the United States at the 1995 and 1997 World Championships. He was also a member of Team USA at the 1999 World Cross Country Championships and brings a lot of wisdom to this Atlanta Track Club elite team.
You are really going to love this conversation we had with Tommy. It's great because not only did we get to talk about him as an athlete, what he did, how he became who he was, but also we got to learn about his coaching philosophy, how he thinks he can really help the Atlanta Track Club, and what he loves about this transition from New York to Atlanta. So we hope that you love the show and take this time to get to know our new elite coach here in Atlanta.
He is just settled in here in Atlanta this week. So, Tommy, thank you so much for taking some time out of the unpacking and the craziness of moving to talk to us today. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Liking the weather so far, especially after leaving the floods we had in New York last end of the week. And, you know, it's been great to be here so far.
Yeah, you're in for a treat. Fall in Atlanta is pretty nice.
So it seems like a little hot today, but not terribly hot. I mean, I take that over, in the fall, and I lived in the Hudson Valley. It was pretty nice too, but looking for a little bit more extended, mild temperatures is going to be great.
I go up to New York quite a bit, which we've talked about, and I always forget that kind of change. So I'm going up in a couple of weeks for a family wedding, and I always have to call and say, Dad, what are you guys wearing right now? Because I can't really remember what 50 degrees or 40 degrees or whatever it is feels like. So looking it up for me never makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, I'm not going to miss like wearing a layer of Patagonia and like a rain jacket on top of that, and trying to navigate on Van Cortlandt Park with the wind blowing across like a half mile, like, just like hunkering down, like enjoying the workout. So, that's not that I won't miss.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, we have been lucky enough to have plenty of conversations with you prior to now, and I'm really grateful. I'm excited for you to start working with the team, which is Wednesday, right? That's the day you're going to meet with everybody?
Yeah, we'll meet Wednesday and just get to know each other. And that's our first day. And we'll work out on Friday. Wednesday will be just kind of meet, do a few things as it relates to, training, but just really a run after that. And, just kind of everybody's at different parts of their season, mostly just starting out. So, we'll ease into it.
Okay. Well, we really want the Atlanta community to get to know you because everybody's excited you're here and wants to kind of hear what you're about, where you're from, that kind of thing. So one of the things we like to start out with on our podcast is to let people kind of tell their running story. So we would love to hear, how you got into running, what your, running career has been like. I know obviously we've heard that before, but we want to hear from you and then, and just kind of ease us into it so people know who you are and where you're coming from.
Oh, yeah. Well, from a running standpoint, I started out at a young age. I grew up in College Point, which is a small kind of town in Queens. It's literally looks out at, LaGuardia Airport. When you land at LaGuardia Airport, you're looking across the Flushing Bay at College Point. So yeah, it was a close-knit community though. And, we had a great running club at the time that was called the College Point Roadrunners Club. We had a great youth program in the town that was run by a guy named John O'Sullivan, and we called him Coach O. And then, we had a good group of young kids, and in New York at the time, and this would be in like the 70s, obviously. I think I started at 10, so this was 76. There was a great community of youth clubs throughout the city and throughout the tri-state area. And so at Van Cortlandt Park, you would, on a typical weekend, on a Saturday weekend meet, there would, be age group meets that would have 200 kids in them, each event. And these were just local events. These were not like national events. These were just local clubs that would come up. I got involved at an early age, and I did it with a friend of mine who was a great football player, and his dad threw us in there to be, to get in shape for football. And I had no business playing football. I was too small. I even think I told the story a lot. I think one day one of the running backs got his cleat stuck in my face mask and kept running for another 20 yards.
Oh no! Oh my God!
That was not my thing. I was
That was
too
the
small.
moment you're like, okay, I'm done. No more football.
Yeah. And my dad's, my friend's dad was a championship Irish hurling player, and his son was a great football player. And we did one meet, and I won the meet, and he was like, "Tommy, you're done with football, lad." It was like, that's it. And so, that was it for that. And I just, was good at it. So I just gravitated toward it because I was encouraged to, and I had a good coach who was really supportive, and I ran well. So, and then I went to McClancy High School, which is also in Queens, and had some really good coaches there. James Carey, Coach Carey was my coach, and he had run at University of South Carolina, actually, and he was a competitive collegiate runner, so he knew the sport and, got me going. And I didn't really, I didn't have a love for the training. I got to tell you that much when I was in high school. I just did it because I was good at it. I'm not going to be honest. And, I had a lot of good friends on the team, and none of my friends from the neighborhood were into running. They were all football players, or, we rode bikes and BMX and all that kind of stuff. But so, I had a whole different group of friends involved with track, and we were really good. I mean, we had a good field events coach, and in high school we won the city championship, and, I was part of that team, and that's when I really broke through as far as running well. I ran the steeplechase in high school, and I was, one of the third fastest in the country, and won the city champs, and went to a couple national competitions at the end of my senior year. And it was, it was a breakthrough for me. And that's when I really, started to love the high level training and the high level competitive part of the sport. I think when we won the city championship, we beat Malloy High School. And if you're from New York in that era, Malloy was, dominated, and we had won, and it was the first time in 23 years. So, it was that was a big breakthrough for me and for the team. And I grew to love that team aspect and the group training and the camaraderie and the fellowship really that came with that and being part of a team. Even though we were runners, we fed off each other, and it was a great way to be introduced into that part of the sport. For me, it was a gateway because I was really struggled in school. I had some learning issues and challenges, and without running, I wouldn't have continued into the, collegiate system, which I didn't initially. I basically didn't get into any 4-year schools because my scores were so low. And I went to junior college in California for 2 years and then transferred to Florida. So it was a challenge for me academically. And, as we know, there's all different types of learning, and there's all different types of intelligence, and the academic world for me was a challenge. I was a learn by doing, and I'm a very visual person, and I'm very much learn by communicating and verbally and then also visually. But it was something that I had to learn about myself. But I was able to go to junior college and do well there, and then transfer to Florida down in Gainesville. I continued my collegiate career down there. All these people that I met along the way and coaches I had, I just was really lucky to get really good coaches and great teammates. Because when I was at Taft College, in California, which is a JUCO out there, the coaches we had were incredible. I mean, my coach, Craig Johnson, was just a really smart man. He was a science guy, and he studied the training, and he studied lactate training and heart rate training, and he had graphs for us. And like, I really enjoyed that, and I really understood it for some reason. And he was the first coach I had that was really used a scientific approach to training. And so, I ran well out there, and then I was able to transfer to Florida, and then had, a great teammates and great coaches there as well, with Joe Walker. Joe Walker Jr. was my coach, and then John Webb. They really took me under their wing, even though I was hurt when I transferred. And I had a tremendous group of young men and women, and that's where I met my wife at University of Florida. So spent a few years down there running and training and being part of that community, and that group really even gave me a deeper love and a respect for that level of competition and training. And I also was hurt when I was there, and that's where I really began to learn about the importance of all the ancillary things that we do as runners to stay healthy. And I met Phil and Jim Wharton, who were really influential in my career as a runner because they helped me get back. I had this tendonitis in my knee, and I didn't understand it, and I wasn't really getting better. I wasn't healing, and I learned that strength training and flexibility work and all those kinds of things were essential to get back. And those guys took care of me, Phil and Jim, and got me back. And I was an NCAA champion in 1989, but it was really because I had good people around me to help me understand what I had to do, and then mentor me and educate me on that. And that's when I, again, realized, all these people that I had around me were supportive and helpful. And, that got me to that next level where I was able to be an NCAA champion. And then, I made the Olympic trials kind of in 88. And then I realized that, I wanted to continue with the sport after my collegiate career, which, for me at the time, I really didn't know I wanted to get into coaching or into the therapeutic part of sport in running, but it all kind of happened that way because of what I was learning about myself. I used that later in life, but at the time I didn't realize that was going to be the path that I took. But just being around the people around the sport, I learned so much that I wanted to also share that with people. After I graduated in 90, and I finished my career at Florida, I stuck around Gainesville and tried out for the Olympic team in 92 in the steeplechase and just missed it. I was fourth that year, but I had run a really fast time and made a tremendous breakthrough. And again, the level of training that I was doing, I was able to do it and able to sustain the level of training because of the work that I learned with Phil and Jim Wharton about, basically strength training, flexibility work. Again, all the other things that you have to do as a runner helped me to do that, to reach that level and to stay healthy enough to train at a level that was required to make that kind of breakthrough.
Isn't it interesting how when we talk about running and we think about running, most people just think about the act of running. And it isn't until we get in trouble or we are injured or whatever it is that all these other things kind of start coming in, right? So, oh yeah, I have to do the strength training, or, oh yeah, this mobility is so important, or, oh, I can't sleep 5 hours a night anymore, in order to perform better. So it's interesting that part of your experience is such a huge part of just, from our conversations of who you are today as a coach. Yeah,
it really did shape me. And, as far as being a coach, 100%. And all those things I learned, I just feel blessed that I was, went through those things, because otherwise, like you said, you take them for granted and maybe you're not as committed to doing them until you actually can't run. And it's what you want to do. A lot of things, you don't necessarily learn it or understand it until you have to. And, like you said, most people want to go out and they just want to run. Like, it's real simple, right? You just go run. Like, what's the big deal? Let's just go run. Like, run 5 miles. Wow, big deal. You got to do all this other stuff. It's like, well, you do. So, yeah. And that's the thing. Like, I really, got into it. As far as, the other things that you have to do, all the ancillary work that you have to do, and all the little things as we talk about, because I had to, or else I wasn't able to really stay healthy and stay training. I did all that, and because I had to, and I was a little bit fragile. And then as I did get stronger and do all those things, I was able to keep training, training at a higher level. I tried out for I made the 95 World Championship team and the 97 World Championship team in the steeplechase, and just missed the Olympic team in 96 here in Atlanta. Again, I was fourth in Atlanta in 96. And remembering warming up at the warm-up track down there that we're going to actually use, for our training, which is interesting how that,
that would be
full circle.
Yeah, that's gonna take a minute to get over, right, Tommy?
Oh no, I'm well over that.
So
that's a whole nother life.
So what a great perspective to have, though. I mean, that is, being fourth is, I don't know how that feels. I haven't been in that position, but I can imagine how that feels to be fourth a couple times, like so close, but then it's so far away. I can imagine that that's also another great perspective that you have coming in as a coach and being able to have those kind of conversations with your athletes. Yeah.
And, I can remember having conversation with my, I think it was my brother-in-law. It's about, committing to doing the sport at that level because of the level of sacrifice and the level of commitment that you have to make to do it. And it is. And people just think about the sacrifice of, I gotta go to bed early. I gotta do this or I gotta do that. Like, most people at this level that we're talking about training and that I'm going to be helping these athletes do here, you put your life on hold. I mean, you do, you have to. I mean, so you have to be 100% okay with the fact that it could be really close. It could be not even close. But you have to be okay with the fact that, the dream or the goal that you have might not exactly work out. And so you have to be more attached to the process of doing it and loving that process and understanding that the goal obviously is to make an Olympic team or to make a world championship team or to win a championship or to, that's all that is the goal. But you also have to know that if you do all the things that you're capable of doing and that you can control, and you do all those things, and on the day you take care of business and you go out there and you give your all, and you are fourth, and everyone says that's the fourth position. And I always say, what about the guy who was 11th? Right. Or the gal who was 11th, or the person who was 11th. Like, they had the same goal I did. They just weren't as close. And, honestly, there really wasn't anything I could have did differently in those times. I ran really fast, and I ran faster than I had ever, especially even in that year. In 92, I ran 22-second personal best. Like, you can't hang your head. If you do all the things that you're capable of doing, and you can do, you listen to your coaches, live the life that you're expected to live and the sacrifices that you make. And then you go out there and you give it everything you've got and you don't make it. You know what? You can live with that. It's disappointing, obviously, right? You're not going to do it, but we can walk away and say, you know what? I gave it a good shot. And that's sport. And I mean, obviously it's still, like you said, it's disappointing and you gotta, work your way through that. And there'll be some little bit of, I don't want to call it, grieving, but because, it's not that much of a loss, really. It's just
but Tommy, I think it is grieving for if you're not reaching your goal, or if you have a loss like that. It may not be grieving in the sense that other people think of it, but when you've put so much of your heart into it, I do think grieving is an appropriate word.
Yeah, maybe it depends on how you look at it, but there are a lot of things in life that can be a whole lot harder to go through, and it is something you put a lot into, and it's a huge amount of time and sacrifice, like you said. But just knowing how life is, there are a lot of people going through a lot of stuff that we could call grieving, and I don't put that as, I mean, it's difficult. It's difficult to go through, but I can certainly say I didn't really necessarily grieve. I was probably really disappointed and let down that I didn't achieve that goal. But I did try out again in 2000, and I was like sixth, I believe. But again, that performance that I had in 2000, I could rank almost higher than any other performance, because I already at that point had 3 kids, and one of my daughters had been sick that year. So there was a lot more to overcome, And so, perspective is really important. And that's one of the things I want to also teach and coach athletes as they do this as a sport, is that we do have to keep things in perspective to what it is we're doing. It's really important for us at the time, and it's a tremendous opportunity. But we also have to realize it is an opportunity. It's not something we're being forced to do. It's not something that is going to really affect us in a negative way. And if we don't allow it to, it's just not. It's just not at the level of disappointment that can be in life. And we get to control it. We get to control our destiny for the most part. So, and that's a pretty cool thing. And we have to look at it from that standpoint, and not from a standpoint of, again, I think the thing I'm trying to say is that we just have to keep it in perspective. We're not going to war here, fortunately. This is an opportunity. We get to do something we love, and we have to remember that,
I think that's the part to hold on to, is you get to do something that you love, and going out there and remembering every time, you have a hard workout or something comes up that you got to choose this, and you have this opportunity in front of you.
Yeah.
And I do think that it helps. I don't know about you, but the older I get, the more perspective I have. So, when, a 20-year-old athlete compared to, 20 years later for me, or, whatever it is, I certainly feel like, it's good to have people that can talk about perspective and give you perspective if you haven't had the life experiences, maybe.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to in no way take away how important it is. And how important it is for each individual, not doing that it's really important, and it's a tremendous sacrifice. There's no question. But, we do also have to step back and say, and be patient and look at like what the long-term goals are, what we're trying to do, and understand that, and not get overwhelmed by any individual moment or an individual day or workout or anything like that,
Yeah, this makes me curious, Tommy, because, we think about, like goal setting with athletes, right? And how there's this whole side of running that's just the process, right? And like, think of the goal being one moment, in time, and how many days and weeks and months you spend training for that one moment in time, right? So how do you, goal set with your athletes, and how do you have those conversations with them, to kind of set up this perspective early?
Well, I think, in our sport, like this particular year is an Olympic year, and ultimately that is the goal. That's the Super Bowl, right? That's what we're trying to get to and perform at the highest level at. So with anything, for me, what we have to do is look at when that is, when is the date? Like, what are the actual days and the dates? I like to look at that. It's June 19th. On a Friday is your first round. June 21st is your second round. And your final is on the 23rd. Okay? So look at that and we say, that's when we have to be ready. look at those days and visualize yourself in that time period right now and in that place. That's where you're going to be. And then what we do is we back into that. And I look at 12-week cycles of training. And what we do is we take 12-week cycles and we back into it all the way to the current moment, till now, or to when we're starting. So we go 12 weeks back, another 12 weeks back, and another 12 weeks back, and we look at, and then we plug in what we want to do based on that cycle. And in those 12 weeks, you have two 6-week cycles, and within that, you have each 6-week cycle, you have 2 3-week cycles. And you just keep plugging in what you have to do in those 3-week cycles and literally look at it and back it into the whole year. Now, that's your plan. That's a kind of a general plan, looking at it and cycling that in. And there'll be times of hard training and then times of little breaks and times of hard training and little breaks. And obviously that's what you have to do. You can't always be training hard. But basically what you do is you write it in pencil and then you back into it that way. And then you plug into where you want to race and where you want to be racing kind of some faster times, possibly in early June, late May, and a build up in April, another build up in April. So, basically what you're doing is you're looking at the year and then filling in what you have to do and having a general plan. And then, and picking races where you want to be good. When I say that, and I use this, term, where you want to be good. Where do you want to be good? Where do you want to be great? Where do you want to be exceptional? And then training around that. So you have to have that because we don't control the date. That's one thing we don't control. We don't control time and we don't control the date. So what we have to do is have a general plan around that. We don't get to say, well, you know what, end of June is not going to work out for me. I want to be ready more in July, I mean, it's just, we get to choose a lot, but we don't get to choose that, right? So we have to have kind of like an idea of when we have to be ready. Not an idea. We have to look at that and then make the training around it. And then we have to, make a solid plan, but we also have to be willing to adapt because it doesn't always go exactly to plan. If you have injuries that come up, if you have an illness that come up, if you have a family issue that may come up, there are different things that may happen, but generally we make a plan. And then also if we have to, we adjust. And you have to understand that too, as an athlete and as a coach, that it doesn't always go exactly to plan. And if you have a general plan and you can consistently work that plan for most of the time, it's a little easier to adjust. And that, so that's how I like to do it. And then, and then inspire, my athletes and everyone around me to do it. Because there's going to be days where you're not too sure, or maybe you're a bit tired, or you're unmotivated, or you're a little banged up. Meaning, when I say banged up, you're a little hurt or you're injured, and you're getting freaked out because you feel like you're running out of time. My experience has been that the will that people have is pretty strong. And if you believe in that, and you believe in the people around you, and you believe in your God-given talent, you can overcome a lot. And so I try to, convince people of that and convince them to understand that they're capable of doing a lot more than they think. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to go out and do that every time you go out and practice and train, but you want to understand that that's there if you need it. And convincing them that place that you have to go to sometimes is there if you believe it is. And, because there are things that you sometimes have to do that are beyond, like, the training and the science and that. And I try to convince people and inspire people to find what that is for themselves. Meaning, like, what is it that makes you do this? Mm-hmm. What is it really? deep down inside that you want from this? Is it, that you want to, represent yourself and your family? Is it your God? Is it your country? Is it your dog? I don't know, like whatever it is, right?
It's my dog for sure.
It's my dog for sure. Yeah.
I mean,
gotta make sure he can live his best life.
Yeah. Well, because, that higher power is different for everyone. Right.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to tap into. And, whatever that is for each individual is different. I don't know what that is. I mean, there's two things you can find: inspiration and desperation, I mean, you get some athletes like, we see like Kenyans and Ethiopians, they don't feel like they have a choice in what they're doing, right? They're not doing this because they're inspired. They are inspired, but they're also kind of desperate because this is their way out. They're if they can make it, they've made it for life. They can walk away with a tractor,
Yeah.
Literally, like, they're a lot of it's different cultures, right? But like their inspiration is almost desperation. They feel like this is their way out. This is going to set them up for life, that they can provide for their family and that kind of thing. That's okay too, obviously, because, people are going to get pretty inspired when they can tap into that kind of, that kind of motivation.
So you're coming on to a whole new team. There's a lot of athletes you've never worked with before. How do you figure this out about people? What is your kind of way in to start to get to know your team and build this inspiration around it?
Well, I think, you got to get to know people, right? Mm-hmm. You got to understand like where they're from, what's their background, where they go to school. Like you got to talk to them and then watch what people do and how they're motivated, like, especially when it gets difficult. And sometimes not. Sometimes it's, you learn a lot from people about when they're on top too. And then what really makes them tick that way. I think that the way you do that is, create a place where people can be open and safe in a lot of ways. And I mean, safe is like, not that they're going to be criticized or, that, but I think, there's a certain amount of grit that you need to do this sport or to run that is almost like a survival skill is what it comes down to. Right. And that's what like you find that when you see people, doing the marathon and doing, ultra marathons and doing what we're doing is like, it's almost like you get to the point where there becomes a point where your like internal human survival instinct kicks in where, you like have to do this to survive, and that's the, the pure, simplest way to put it is that, you get to a point where, you got to get right down to the nitty gritty of, what you're doing. And a lot of times that's what it is. It's like you want to prove that you're able to do this. And so if you can get to that, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But like you said, I don't know what that is. It's different for everyone. And what it comes down to for some people is just like proving to themselves that they can do it, whatever that is. And so I just have to try to help them get to that. And I don't know what each individual will be different. And I just have to, and I may not even learn enough about them, but maybe they can find it through what we're doing,
Got a big job ahead of you, Tommy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's easy if you have a group that all wants to do it together and you allow them to feel good about it. So that's what we're hoping to get to. The X's and O's we'll figure out for each individual, meaning the particular type of workouts and this and that. I mean, I think when you feel good about what you're doing overall together, it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. You talk a lot about the environment and culture that you want to create. And I think that that's going to be really important when you are walking into kind of a new situation like this. So I think we're all excited to see what that looks like. I want to hear the story of how you applied for the track club position and what got you here. What excited you about this spot, Atlanta and the team and all of that stuff?
Yeah, well, I've been up in New York for a long time now, and I got involved coaching the New Jersey, New York Track Club, which was coached by Coach Gagliano, and I was with him with that from 2009 to basically 2020. And we had, started out as a small group and grew, and we eventually had a major sponsor with Hoka, and our group really grew. And, just whatever happened, Hoka wanted to change direction. So they discontinued that sponsorship in 2020, and then the group kind of broke apart. And John Troutman and I, who also was coaching with Gag, started this the Empire Elite Track Club, and recruited some new athletes, kept some from the old club, and we were able to kind of keep that going without a sponsor and without the support. And it was a challenge, to go out and basically we were set up as a 501(c)(3). We had no major sponsor, so we went out and we raised money, and we were able to do that by finding some people who had a real interest in track and field and wanted to support what we were doing and really were interested and loved watching what we were doing. So we were able to do that and get some funding, and got some, we were able to recruit some really fun, talented athletes and people that we brought in, and it was incredible. And being a New Yorker, being able to network into, the Armory and doctors and chiropractors, and, everybody was helping us, and it was really cool, but it was also, not sustainable in some ways. I think Empire Elite will continue, but in the long term, I just felt like for me, this, when I heard that the Atlanta Track Club was going to make some changes, I heard about that, and I thought, wow, that'd be an incredible opportunity to work with the athletes that I saw that were here, and in an organization that I knew about, because I know Rich, and I know what's going on in the sport. So I knew a lot about what the Atlanta Track Club was doing as a club, and also in the elite team. I really liked the way it was organized and the way it was set up, as far as, working with Adidas and the athletes working with the community and being tied in with, the races that the club puts on, the youth that it puts, that's involved with. And so for me, you heard my story. I started out in sport at 11 years old, and, it created a whole life of opportunities for me. Even in New York, I was involved with a couple different levels. At the youth level, I always gave clinics to high schoolers. I coached high school from 2009 until 2018. So, and I worked at the youth level. I worked at the high school level. I was working at the pro level. I worked with Iona College and Columbia University, even up until I just moved down here, helping them with their athletes and some of the neuromuscular stuff that I know, and the injury prevention kind of work, basically the flexibility and the strength training part of what I do. And so working at every level of the sport, for me, when I saw, this opportunity at Atlanta Track Club, I was like, they're working at every level of the sport. So, besides being directly involved with collegiate meets and athletes, it really, was for me an opportunity that I don't think I could ever really have again, unless this job came open again. And I felt like, wow, this is an incredible opportunity. So I talked to my wife, Kim, and my family about it, and they were all completely supportive, and Kim was willing to move. We didn't know whether or not she would be able to continue with her job, and that was a big thing, and be here in Atlanta. I saw it as an incredible opportunity to be involved with an organization, and then also with athletes, and a program that has the potential to continue to be successful, and also raise the level a bit more. And so, yeah, and that's really, why. And honestly, after I came back from the USA Championships, I was there with Empire and the team, and I just was like, God, we got to continue. We got to keep this going. We can still make the next level. And I was really contemplating whether or not that I wanted to do it. And I almost called Derek and Rich and told them, look, I don't think this is going to work out. I just really feel like I felt like what it was is I felt a commitment and a sense of loyalty, not a sense of loyalty, but I wanted to follow through with the athletes that we had through the Olympic year next year.
Yeah.
And so I really felt like that was important for me to do for them and with them, because we had started that. And so I was feeling, just a little bit of, not regret, but like commitment that I didn't want to give up on with them.
Yeah.
But then I realized that the other coach I was coaching there with was John Troutman, and he's a great coach and he's going to continue with them. And I said to myself, you know what? They'll be fine. And they'll be fine continuing with John. And I was like, you know what? This opportunity isn't going to come up again. And the opportunity is here now. And so I have to take it. So I changed and then once I got on the phone with Rich and Eric again, I was like, yeah, no, I'm if I can get this job, I'm going. So
it is difficult when you're in that kind of interim period where it's a hard choice to make, doing what you've been doing and being successful at what you're doing, and then making the jump to that unknown of where, I haven't lived in Atlanta. I don't know these athletes. All this is going to be new. We're going into an Olympic year. All those things are huge decisions. So I think that it's normal to feel that. And I'm sure, and that also just tells you how you feel about your athletes and, how much you respect them and, truly believe in what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that was a big thing. And then, like I said, and it's kind of cool because, Luciano Fiore is one of the athletes we've developed, and he's been able to join the team. So that's cool. And, so he's going to be here. And then, my son Ian is, unofficially going to be training with the team and with us here. And so I've been coaching him for the last year. And I also, obviously want to continue with him. And he was like, oh yeah, I'll move to Atlanta. And so, and then all the athletes that are here and that we're recruiting, it's just an incredible opportunity for me in so many ways. But as far as like making decisions, those were also key factors that I kind of helped me, knowing that like some of the athletes from Empire would be candidates to be here. So that was kind of cool.
That is cool. So tell me, we're getting close to our hour mark, but I have a couple more questions that I wanted to ask you. And one of them is, what are you most excited about, coming into this new position and working with the track club? What excites you about it the most?
I think the resources and the opportunity with the facilities, the MAP team, the medical team that's in place to be able to give the athletes the support, that I can refer the athletes to and work with. But, having all that, and then for me, being able to just focus solely on coaching, where in New York, like I said, it was, I was having to still work with two other teams and I was running around a lot, and just being able to really lock in and focus on just the athletes on the team and obviously all the other things that are going on with the organization. But my role to be able to just focus in on coaching, I mean, that's a tremendous thing. Like even to have like a desk to go sit at and just lock in and focus on the right workouts where, I'd be in the car or back in New York, in traffic, like getting, texts and things about workouts and looking at final surge in the middle of like it was a lot to manage. So for me personally, being able to really feel like, making a jump as a professional coach, not that, I wasn't coaching at that level, but having all the other resources and the support around that. And then having, Adidas as a sponsor, having, the ability to have the equipment that we have, the weight training equipment and all those things, they're all helpful, but also then having, a group of athletes that I know that they're here for 100% this, is pretty cool for me. Yeah.
And then lastly, is there anything else you really want our community, our running community here to know about you that we haven't covered?
Well, two things that they probably don't want to know about me is that I'm a Mets fan.
Oh no, I told you we couldn't talk about that.
Well, you have to get it out there, and they probably don't care because they're just going to laugh at us like we're almost like a joke. So, and they just fired their coach yesterday, Buck Showalter. So we'll see what happens. But, and not that it matters, but I'm also a suffering Jets fan. So I'm going to have to figure this out.
You guys almost got it though on primetime football last night. Almost. And then, to really put the icing on the cake the kicker is that I'm a Gator fan. So it totally, again, I might have to change my license plate because my license plate right now is Gator. And I don't want my car to get Tommy,
vandalized.
Stay strong. I'm also a Gator, actually. This is something we haven't gotten to bond over because I know that Kate would make fun of me, but I'm going to bring it up publicly on the podcast.
Oh, see?
But
it took me to come out to get you to really come out there and put it out there.
Yeah, so I'm also a Gator. I studied exercise physiology there and ran
nice.
beard track all the time in undergrad. So.
Oh, cool. So you were part of the, as we said, you were in the gym college. Florida gym.
Yeah, Florida gym, which is not a gym, but we go to class there.
Right.
Well, and
people ask me my major, and I would say I'm a gym major.
Oh, that's funny. Well, since I'm not from the South and didn't go to school down here, being a Gator doesn't really, sorry guys, mean a whole lot to me. But I will tell you, I'm not going to tell my grandmother that you're a Mets fan because my grandma's such a hardcore Yankees fan. She's 99 and she still watches every game, writes down who wins and who loses.
Wow.
She's been talking about writing a letter to the manager for as long as I can remember because she's not happy with what he's been doing. So I'm not going to mention that you're a Mets fan, and I'll try to forget on our everyday interactions.
Yeah. Well, Gags was a big Yankee fan, so we always had. But the good news is I'm not a Red Sox fan for her.
Oh, thank God.
That would be the kicker because the Mets and the Yankees, it doesn't really matter.
That's exactly right. If you were
just
a Red Sox
four
fan,
games a year, that's all that matters. Like 4 games a year.
If you were a Red Sox fan, I would have had to make a call to Eric, Tommy.
Yeah, that or a New England fan, which if, in my household, those are 2 no-nos.
That's right. Well, we are so excited to have you here and look forward to start our journey together this week as you start practice with the athletes and then, our orientation next week. So this is pretty great. And thanks so much for taking the time, especially the day after you moved here, to come on our podcast with us. Really appreciate it.
We really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me on. And I'm looking forward to everything myself.
Thank you so much for listening today. We are so happy that you're here. If you enjoyed this conversation, share it with a friend. Even better, share it on social media because sharing is caring. And the more people we can reach, the better.
Another way you can help us out is by leaving a review on Spotify or Apple Podcast. So give us those 5 stars and tell us how awesome we are. Really, we love to hear how awesome we are. To support our work financially, you can also join our Patreon squad at patreon.com/morethanmiles, where for a few dollars a month, you can help us keep the show going and growing.
This season is sponsored by Fast Bananas. Why buy multiple subscriptions made for everyone when you can have one specifically crafted for runners? Fast Bananas has online yoga classes, strength training programs, meditations, recipes, communities to ask questions, and so much more. Check out Fast Bananas at fastbananas.com or follow them on Instagram at fastbananasrun.
Don't forget that training is so much more than miles.